don't see Mr. Shegda. If he comes in before we're finished, he's welcome to speak. Next, we have Sal Rizzo. Sal Rizzo?
Yes.
If you could identify yourself for the clerk so she gets everything right.
Yes, my name is Sal Rizzo. I live in Easton, Pennsylvania. I'm here to speak on behalf of Mr. Shegda.
Oh. All right, please proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Shegda was supposed to come here and speak. I mean, he should be. I'm sure he'll be here soon. He has some disability problems that makes it hard with mobility. But I'm here to talk on behalf of not only him but his sister Lorraine. 7 years ago, this January, 7 years ago, Lorraine Shegda was taken from her home in Hellertown, where she was being well taken care of by her brother Ron. For 7 years, he has had very limited contact with Lorraine. He was accused of abusing Lorraine, and there was no evidence whatsoever that he did. And I'm also a witness. I've watched prior to this happening. I visited his house many times, and I've seen what exquisite care he gave Lorraine. And to me, this was the involvement of our county government gone wild, as far as I'm concerned. They took an innocent woman away from her brother, who was not guilty of anything, and they allowed her health to deteriorate over the past 7 years. And I think it is shameful that this county has done nothing about it whatsoever. Could you imagine if this happened to you, that a family member of yours got taken away like this and was allowed for this to happen? I'm sure you would fight for that person. You would not neglect. Ron has fought for Lorraine over many past years. He has had many stumbling blocks. That's because the county always looked for ways to trip him up and prevent him from being able to take care of his sister. Now, unfortunately, Ron's health has deteriorated as well because of all the stress that he was put through because of this. And this is a very sad story. I think something needs to be done. Anybody who was involved in this miscarriage of justice should be punished, without a doubt. Because I'm sure that's exactly what you want if they did that to your family member. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And here's Ron.
All right. Mr. Shegda, now that you're here, I see your name's on here. You feel free to come up. You're more than welcome.
Pastor Dave has my comments.
Bill McGee's on the line.
All right, and I just want to note, Bill McGee is on the line now for our meeting. Go ahead, Mr. Shegda, go right ahead.
Who's Mr. McGee?
Mr. McGee is a council member who's at work right now. He couldn't make it, so he is on the conference call. He's listening, and he can speak.
God bless him.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
It's my address to Northampton County Council, December 13, 2018. 2018. My name is Ron Shegda. Honorable Mr. Council Vice President, councilors, county executive.
He's behind you.
Pastor Dave, could you give...
I'll give them all out.
There's one on the edge there.
All right. Thank you. And also, there was a copy for Linda Zembo. Was that you?
That's Linda. We'll make sure
All right.
they're
Are you
available for
Linda?
everyone.
Oh.
Yes.
I've heard your name precedes you. I've heard good things about you. That's what Archbishop Fulton Sheen said. When you enter the gates of heaven, you're going to you're going to have entry because my mother has spoken well of you. So I've heard good things spoken of you, Linda.
Thank you.
You have 5 minutes. I just want you to, because I know this is important to you.
This is 5 minutes.
Go right ahead.
Honorable Bristol Council Vice President, councilors, county executive, and servants of the people, fellow citizens, I am here as a witness of the chronic cruelty and intense abuse by Northampton County Human Services. This culture of cruelty and inhumanity has pervaded Northampton County Human Services. Similar to local governments across America and Western nations, I've studied it well. For our family, during these last 8 years, I have come to rename this #1 funded department in the county as Human Disservices or Human In-Services or Inhuman Services. This enduring and endemic abuse of citizens has deeply spread among the host of sub-agencies to human services here and everywhere. Why? Because these contracted agencies are addicted to county and government funding and will lie about vulnerable people and their families and inflict them with their own brand of cruelty, all for the sake of their 30 pieces of silver. These sub-agencies are populated with former employees of the county or by their relatives, friends, and lovers. Agencies that contract with Northampton County like LifePath, Community Options, Pinebrook, Family Services, Kids Peace, Quality Progressions, and every such agency that enforces brutal and wicked dictates of separating families and imposing an iron will upon them from their own depravity on families, and especially vulnerable members like my sister with Down syndrome. She was taken without a warrant. She was taken under false pretense. And this county has pulled in $3 million off of her. And she's living on, and she's in an ER now again on a ventilator. There's no place for this kind of behavior and administration that professes by a county of mercy and justice, which you should all stand for every second of your public life, mercy and justice. I bear the wounds of specific employee and sub-agency cruelty, along with my near twin sister, Lorraine, and I'm grateful for Salvatore Rizzo's comments as I came in, that she was Human Services was supposed to be caring for her and serving her. Instead, she was separated from her family for 6 years with no knowledge of her whereabouts. I didn't know where she was for 6 years when she was taken by people, employees of Human Services, under false pretenses. I didn't know where she was for 6 years until Judge Giordano said, hey, this family should be reunited today, first time in 6 years. And she was drugged beyond belief. She was bodily dragged from her home by guardian Deborah Jean DiNardo. She dragged her out of the house. She was sexually abused. Her identity was confiscated from her, and her neck was broken after 8 months of my warnings that there's like this is something wrong going on here, and so my warnings were negated for 8 months, ignored.
Mr. Shegda, your time expired.
Can I finish?
Well, let me say this. I'll certainly consider that. Either your minister, as an individual, would have the right to 5 minutes if he wanted to come before us and finish reading your statement.
Okay.
Or if he doesn't want to, I'll give you the 5 minutes. But that's it, 5 minutes that I would give somebody else.
I'll give him 4 of my minutes.
Well, 4 of your minutes? And just so you know, I know you're sort of ad-libbing, and we see this, and I understand how important this is to you. I'm trying to be fair, but
well, this is like 8 years of suffering.
All right.
All right. So
go ahead.
I only need probably 3 minutes.
Well, just go ahead.
For me, the super intense and unrelenting stress imposed by Northampton County Human Services and so-called court officers, including April Courts and Deborah Jean DiNardo, has led to a ruptured abdomen, which still oozes today, a heart attack, I had a stroke this year, and now a debilitated spine, all from intense stress. And Peg knows me from years ago. She probably can't believe the condition I'm in. Since 1990, the Morning Call has routinely reported abuses committed by Northampton County Human Services concerning the breaking up of families without warrants or evidence, with Northampton County committing 90% of these offenses. No one in government cared, with Steve Barron as an advancement as Sexton. Ross Marcus could care less and took an illegal job with the CACLV. The endless stream of Title IV money keeps flowing for this kind of apprehension of vulnerable people. And it doesn't require much spiritual depth and preparation to realize you are running a bureaucracy here with daughters and sons of God who are hemorrhaging their souls. The same tune is flatly sung by such departments across America in the West. And I have a good scholarly reference here at the end that I'm not going to read. Since passage of CAPTA, the Child Abuse Protection and Treatment Act, where incompetent and disordered caseworkers are hired to find abuse where it doesn't exist. 80% of 400,000 families in the United States every year are falsely accused and their families smashed apart for the sake of this funding. In 2010, Georgia State Senator Nancy Schaefer and her husband Bruce, affectionately nicknamed Bear, were brutally assassinated on March 26th that year because she continually exposed the horrific crimes against humanity by such agencies. I encourage you to look up. She's got many of, look up on YouTube, look up on the internet. She has many videos that you can see. She's a good Christian woman who stood up against this, and she was murdered. And I ask nothing from this solemn body. No one has given our pleas over the years any heed. Some who harbor similar witness are gathered here or at home in solidarity. Like Rhett Butler said at the end of Gone with the Wind, no one in office gave a damn about us or others that are gathered. Providentially, I ran into Lamont at an Iron Pigs game last August. He never had the decency to answer my several previous letters as a candidate and then as an elected official. During that summer night, while walking on a cane, because of this persecution, this incredible stress that just sapped my stamina and strength and my health, Mr. McClure assured me he would look into this atrocious, enduring, and scandalous account of abuse. To this day, Mr. McClure has remained silent.
You're getting down to a minute, so go ahead.
My last paragraph. There is an idea for Northampton County government and these hallowed halls of the courthouse concerning this culture of cruelty, this culture of cruelty. Remove the huge seal proclaiming mercy and justice that all employees are invited, and all of you elected officials are invited to see and glean while leaving the building, quoted from the book of Baruch and the Gospel of St. Matthew. Certainly, our family and so many I know in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, across the U.S. and overseas. I know people around the world. I know people around the world are going through the same thing, have not received one iota of mercy or justice, nor any sign of any profession of virtue from Northampton County government. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer, and perhaps Pastor Brown would like to echo anything I've said.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Shegda. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just need a minute.
Go right ahead.
Hold on. my friend for 30 years.
So yeah, I'm not his minister. I'm his friend of 30 years who happens to be a minister. I just want to vouch for his character. I've known him all this time. I've seen...
Oh, and you know what? I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
apologize. Could you please give your name?
Sure. The Reverend David L. Brown.
All right, go ahead.
I've seen his loving relationship, the way he's taken care of his sister, and I believe him 100% that he's correct in saying that she was taken away for no good reason at all. And so I urge you to look into his case and do what you can about it. I totally agree with everything that I heard Sal say about him. That's all I need to
Thank
say.
you very much, sir. All right, next I have Arlene DeBrow, or DeBrow.
Thank you. Sir, I've got a little older over the years here. I might be past your date myself.
If you would just then identify yourself for the clerk.
Sure. I have a watch here, but I might go over our little 5 minutes. I hope that I will get some, as this is my first time addressing Northampton County.
right
Can
ahead.
everybody in the room hear me now? I'm speaking into the microphone.
You're doing great.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Heckman. What would you want me, you said identify myself, you asked me to identify myself first?
I think, did you? She has it now, so go right ahead. You can start.
Sorry. Mr. Shegdy concluded with that he would answer any questions. I will begin with, I will stand for interrogation at the conclusion of what I have to say. I, myself, have been personally abused by the Pennsylvania Department of Aging and the AAA of the next county over, the adjoining county, and the Civil Service Commission. And I have some legal things here to address, as we have a couple of attorneys in the room here with us tonight. So it is especially difficult for me to have seen and witnessed what I saw and know is going on in the AAAs, the Area Agencies on Aging, throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, because in the 1960s, when I was a young idealist activist, I worked for Governor Schaap, and my cohorts and I created the Pennsylvania Department of Aging and the AAAs throughout the Commonwealth under the Thomas Jefferson's theory of law that the government closest to the people serves people the best. And we designed the structure of the agencies so that there would be both county oversight and Pennsylvania oversight. I'm here, ladies and gentlemen, to tell you tonight that there is no oversight over these counties' agencies. I would bet that none of you here, including the county executive, have actually reviewed the products produced by the care managers in the area agencies on aging in this county, or the Civil Service Commission, or the Pennsylvania Department of Aging in any other county. We are supposed to be a country based on rule of law. We are supposed to have 3 independent branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. We are not supposed to have a branch called the bureaucrats. However, that's what we have. By my own experience, as well as those reported to me by hundreds of people throughout this Commonwealth, there is no oversight in counties, in the 67 counties throughout Pennsylvania, nor in this county. There is negligence and abuse covered up by fraud. And then another government agency covering up the abuses, the negligence and fraud by the original AAAs, which is, of course, under the Department of Human Services, as referred to by a previous speaker here. After the director of the adjoining county sent me 3 blatantly, obviously false reasons for not hiring me, even though we have an age preference law. I'll go into that if anybody is not familiar with the age preference law that we have in Pennsylvania for any situation, any position within the Department of Aging or any of the AAAs throughout the Commonwealth. After 3 obviously blatant remarks in written form sent to me by a Northampton County attorney, I will be happy to name him Mark Albright, who is now practicing law again here in this county and
Mrs.
Pennsylvania,
Burrow,
of course.
you have a minute left, and I'm going to have to stay strict because you had requested the person that came with you to have an extra few minutes. So I
What
got
person that came with me?
Well, I'm sorry. I thought the young woman sitting next to you.
Oh.
You came up here. But go ahead. Go ahead. You have a minute.
Well, maybe I can get Pastor Dave to intervene on my behalf again. Who knows?
You're doing
We'll
fine
try.
on your own, but just please, just go ahead.
The age preference law, it says general preference require. Well, I'm going to go, I'll tell you what. I'll skip this and I'll go right to Northampton County. now.
That would be appreciated.
I was interviewed by John Mailer, director of Northampton County AAA. The director said that he wanted somebody that was more knowledgeable on computers that he had available to him. I was, at that time, doing a temporary job, working in computers so I could become more knowledgeable in them. Someone else, other than me here in this county, filed a complaint against Northampton County for hiring someone less than 60 years of age. I think I have to go back a page and read this age preference law to you so it is on the record. The age preference law, section 5.3.
If you want, we can copy that.
Age 5, well, it's...
All right,
it's in
go
the
ahead. It's your minute.
5.3 of the Pennsylvania Code. General preference requirement in the selection of personnel to fill vacant positions in the department and area agencies on aging. Preference subject to this chapter shall be given to available qualified persons 60 years of age or older. I was not only not notified that somebody else had filed a complaint about this hearing, my name was widely used in this hearing, but instead of A. Dubrow, I was called A. Dubrow, D-U-B-R-O-W. Now, that may seem like a minor error, except if you're dealing with, for instance, medications of people, and you write down that they should be taking 81 milligrams of medication instead of 81 micrograms, mcg, just one little letter. Or you write 1.0 instead of 0.1. And I have it on first-hand knowledge that those are the kind of errors that are going on right under your very nose with nobody knowing about it here. The Associated Press posted an issue that gave Northampton a bad grade on elder care issues. I am here to testify that that is true.
I'm sorry, your time is up.
Can I get Pastor Dave to give me 4 more minutes?
Please, I was trying to help somebody with a personal issue. I mean, you've made your point, and if you have,
Okay, so we'd like to.
if you'd like to submit a written statement that you have, we can certainly get it to our council clerk, and everyone here will get a copy of it. I can assure you of that.
I would hope that somebody here has some questions for me.
If someone on council has questions, they're free to ask
Or the county
you.
executive.
Well, he sits there like you do. If he wants to make a statement, I certainly will.
Or ask me anything about the legal proceedings of the agency that
All right.
covered up the abuses here.
All right, well, does anyone have any questions for this individual? No one has any questions now, but thank you. The administration is sitting there, as is the Director of Human Services. They've heard you, they've heard Mr. Shegda, and hopefully we'll review what you've said. Thank you.
Don't forget your cane.
Don't forget your cane. Please, I don't want you to have any...
Watch and pen also.
And your
that I
watch,
went over.
yeah.
Watch in your pen. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Maybe I can be invited to speak again so I can give you the rest
You're
of
as
the
courtesy of the
information.
floor.
Every meeting.
You can come to any meeting and every meeting if you want. Okay. Now I have, I believe, and I should get this right, Tamar Dick. Now, you specifically asked me if you could get a couple extra minutes. And because everyone has had some extra minutes, you will have that, but you did tell me you're going to keep it in a specific time. So go right ahead. If you would just identify yourself.
Yes, Hello, everyone. I'm Tamar Dick, and I'm here to address profound inadequacies in accountability, abuse of recipients of the services rendered by the Department of Human Services and guardianship. I'm referring to the systemic abuse of the rule of law, and the rights of our most vulnerable population, categorically affecting children, the disabled, and the elderly. Reflecting upon Human Rights Day, December 10th, my statement entails decades-long human rights abuses, not just in Northampton County, but many counties across Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, this abuse is well hidden, as most abuse is, where the perpetrators hide in plain sight under the guise of caring professionals who are using the umbrella of this country's human protection laws to seek targets for financial mining and other pathological reasons. Much like pedophiles, they obtain jobs in fields that put them in close proximity to their victims. And much like a pedophile, they rely upon the trust of their community and colleagues to operate. Keeping their base nature secret is their strength. When it's someone who is in a position of power, they are in the position to generate reports of abuse to other authorities. This is one explanation to why people aren't hearing enough about this kind of abuse. It's simply withheld. This is widespread not only throughout PA, but nationally. I'm witness to and victim of abuse of power and persistent rule of law violations beginning in 2003, when I became disabled and moved back home to receive care. My problems began at the hands of Northampton County CAO workers who voiced their dislike of me for having worked in California and for how I earned a living. I'm an artist. I was an IATSE Local 729 union member, and I made my living in the entertainment industry since I was 18. It's a blow to not only be diagnosed with a degenerative disease that continues to limit me, but devastating to no longer be able to do the things I love to do. Compounded by forcing me to fight for my rights to food, medicine, and medical care, added an additional dimension of stress, suffering, and pain to my illness. Then began first of 6 attempts to start a guardianship. The first was to take my disability income. These attempts continued after the illegal termination of my disability benefits based on mysterious erasures of my eligibility data from the state database. I sought help from state reps and others. Inquiries were conducted, prompting 5 more guardianship attempts, resulting in costly legal defense fees. This is a 15-year ordeal. 8 out of these years, I was forced to go without disability benefits. Especially damaging was not receiving the medical care I needed. In 2012, community members contacted a state investigator who said that I was a victim of capitation fraud. Someone was abusing federal subsidy funding by sending false data to the federal government that I was being provided for on one hand, while on the other my eligibility to receive those benefits is deleted, which violated my right to receive benefits as a qualified recipient. I filed reports, requested state and federal hearings, and investigation, all were denied. I was told the 8-year funding loss I experienced may average $3 million. Continuing to fight for my own rights resulted in a 2011 guardianship targeting my caregiver, my mother, following threats made against us, which I was told came directly from then Administrator John Mailer, after ordering me to cease reporting over their heads. He followed the threat through using fraudulent statements, withholding evidence from the judge, and not providing due notice of the court hearing. The most important fact that Mr. Mailer lied to the court about was the sole need for a guardianship being necessitated because, quote, the alleged incapacitated person has no previously appointed surrogate decision maker, when in fact the estate attorney gave him the 1994 surrogate document which was in his possession. During the appeal process, the judge issued a continuance where he denied Mr. Mailer's petition, stating that there had to be medical proof of incapacity and treatment attempted before removing a person from their home. Mr. Mailer then violated the continuance by abducting my mother from the medical facility where she was awaiting a specialist, heavily drugging her, using false pretense to get past security. He then obtained a hearing with a different judge, naming Deborah Dean Gennardo guardian, falsely claiming my mother's drugged unconscious state was her natural functioning at home. Ms. DiNardo not only assumed my mother's identity but mine, putting bills in my name and other frauds. She told North Penn Legal and other agencies I sought help from that she is my guardian, not to intervene. She also declared that she has to quickly get rid of my mother's property and, quote, spend down your mother's money so she can be put on Medicaid. Beginning with the disappearance of my mother's Medicare coverage, her pensions, retirement funds, bank accounts, and her Social Security income. Ms. DiNardo has verbally assaulted me, made me homeless, taken property and money without court permission, and has told people positioned to help slanderous lies, demanding they throw me out to the street, etc. According to a Graysdale nurse, Ms. DiNardo has ordered doctors to use handler's drugs on my mother, dangerously high-dose drug cocktails, dangerous to someone even half her age. When our pharmacist reviewed this drug cocktail, he called it a chemical lobotomy and a threat to her health and life. She also has my mother, who was very physically active, confined to a jerry chair. I have been repeatedly warned not to talk about what happened, but after hearing the horror stories from others, I was compelled to speak, because horror stories of abuse within the system needs to be stopped. And quoting Bob Casey's address from the November 29th hearing on guardianship, sorry. It is, quote, it is abundantly clear that something has to be done. Far too often we've heard horror stories, that's probably an understatement, of guardians who have abused, neglected, or exploited a person subject to guardianship. There are persistent and widespread problems with guardianship around the country. We found deficiencies in the oversight and monitoring of guardians. We've also found that courts remove more rights than necessary by failing to consider less restrictive alternatives to guardianship. And importantly, it is universally agreed upon that there is a lack of reliable, detailed data to inform policymakers. This is simply unacceptable. We have a sacred responsibility to ensure that no one loses a house or a life savings or is needlessly deprived of their rights because a guardian abused their powers. And Senator Casey closed with asking to hear from the community at large about how you want legislation to protect yourself and your families. And if I can conclude with a quote from an elderly rights advocate, Angelique Fawcett, this is a human rights issue. If we do not pay attention to elder abuse, we too may suffer when we are older. Elder abuse cares nothing about who you are, your name, trade, race, sexuality, or your standing. Unfortunately, if some can find the opportunity to abuse you as an elder, they will, or your parents, or next-door neighbors, or your friends as elders. Thank you for giving me the time to say my piece. And if you have any questions or need documents, feel free to ask me to email it to you.
Thank you. Anything?
Yeah, if you do have something you want to send it on to Linda, she can share it with the rest.
Yes.
Linda?
Yeah, that
Send
would-
it to Linda
That would be very
Zembo,
good.
County Council, Council Clerk.
Okay.
It'll get to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there, I don't know everyone signed up. Is there anyone else who would like to address council? If there is, please come up and identify yourself. And I'm going to ask, this was specific county service. It gave some leeway, but could you stay to 5 minutes if possible?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, my name is Kathy Fox. I live in the city of Bethlehem. First, I'd like to thank the County Executive McClure and the members of the Northampton County Council for giving me time to speak today. I come here today to make comment on the proposed resolution to ban single-use plastic bags and straws, which I understand has been tabled to 2019. First, I'd like to say that I'm an appointed member of the City of Bethlehem's Environmental Advisory Council and the co-chair of the Northampton County Democratic Women's Environmental Committee. Representatives of the Bethlehem Environmental Advisory Council Waste Reduction Task Force, who are currently working on an ordinance to ban single-use plastic bags in the City of Bethlehem, will make comment to the Council when the said resolution is considered in 2019. But today, I want to make my own comments regarding the urgent need to reduce our dependency on single-use plastics as a vehicle for reduction of the pollution that is harming our health and the health of our earth. The statistics I found show that in 2017, Americans alone used about 390 million plastic straws every day. The impact on our environment is compounding, and here are some reasons why. 1, plastic straws cannot be easily recycled, as most municipal curbside pickups do not take them, and there are no recycle numbers on them. 2, plastics do not biodegrade. That is, naturally break down and digest into microorganisms, naturally recycling into new organic molecules in life. And they never fully degrade. That is, although it appears to disappear with time, it actually becomes smaller and invisible pieces which continue to release chemicals that are toxic to wildlife and the environment. 3, straws are littered very often and harm our waterways and our wildlife. Northampton County is blessed to have the Delaware and Lehigh rivers and many pristine waterways within the various watersheds that run through the county. Straws and stirrers have a negative impact on our wildlife inside the waterways and on our surrounding land. 4, plastic straws and single-use plastic products are a non-essential part of our life and yet cause so much damage to the environment. As for a Lehigh Valley local example of a successful ban on plastic straws, please look to Muhlenberg College. The college replaced plastic straws with paper straws, and it resulted in a 90% decrease in straw use. This is a savings of money for straws and also reduction of toxic waste for the college. As for single-use plastic bags, I will let you imagine how the trash and pollution they cause are similar in many ways to that of plastic straws. I'm sure the Bethlehem EAC Waste Reduction Task Force will give you the statistics. In 2018, the UN Environmental and World Resources Institute found that 127 countries had already implemented some type of policy to regulate single-use plastic products. Here in the United States, banning single-use plastic began on the West Coast as far back as 2012 and has since established itself here in the East. In fact, the first town in Pennsylvania to ban straws and put limits on plastic bags was Narberth. Their Borough Council unanimously voted on October 17, 2018 to support an outright ban on straws unless requested by a disabled customer, and a 10-cent fee on plastic shopping bags. In New Jersey, Atlantic County banned all single-use plastic bags and plastic straws in all county parks. In neighboring New Jersey, at least 14 towns have shunned plastic bags and in some cases straws, utensils, and styrofoam containers. This past September, our neighbor slightly to the south, Lambertville, New Jersey, adopted one of the most comprehensive ordinances, which bans not only plastic bags, but also plastic straws, styrofoam, and polyethylene products. The ordinance will take effect on January 1st, 2020. The proposed resolution to ban single-use plastic bags and straws sends a clear message to the public that we in Northampton County are serious about cleaning up our environment. At the same time, allows each municipality to develop their own strategies to tackle the problem. If you are tired of seeing plastic bags flying through the air, stuck on branches and trees, like me, and tired of carting all the ones you've saved for recycling to the grocery store, then vote yes for the resolution. If you are concerned about the air we breathe, the clean water we need, and the clean roadways, vote yes on the resolution. I urge council members to do more homework on the issue prior to rendering an opinion. I ask council to consider the generations to come and the world we are leaving them. By continuing the practices we now have in the availability, use, disposal, and single-use practice, we are contributing to a pollution problem on multiple levels that is not sustainable. I work on solutions to make a better world for my children and grandchildren, and know that doing the same thing over and over again and not changing will keep us mired in the problem. This resolution is your opportunity to lead in working on solutions to the pollution problem that is already having devastating effects on our climate, our health, and our earth.
Thank you.
One more line. Are you going to continue the status quo, or are you going to be part of the solution? Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address council? Oh, you do? All right. Let me just say this. The reason we have the 5 minutes is in deference to all speakers and to expedite what needs to get done at the meetings. We try to be as fair as possible. If you have a statement or if you have additional information that you really want us to see, please feel free to forward it to the clerk of council, and we will be sure we get it, and certainly we can share it with the administration. So I just want to share that with you. But please come up and identify yourself.
Thank you. I will read my comments as well to hopefully help stay within the limit.
Oh, I need your name, though, for the...
I got it. My name is Brina Holland. I live at 379 Carver Drive in Bethlehem. So I'm a resident of Northampton County. I'm also an associate professor at Lehigh University. And I as well wanted to make some comments tonight about the plastic bag and straw resolution that was introduced by Councilwoman Tara Zrinski at your last meeting. I understand you tabled the vote on this measure, but I am nonetheless going to make comments tonight as well as presumably when you will take a vote on it. Environmental policy is my area of expertise. I've been teaching, researching, and writing books in this area for nearly, well, decades now, 2 decades. I take the problems very seriously, and in part because the health consequences of environmental problems, I think, are often more significant than people really understand. And this is especially true in the area of exposure to plastic pollution. The consequence for human health of exposure to plastics is an emergent area of very serious and rigorous scientific research. Very little of the total amount of plastic that is used ever gets recycled. Instead, it ends up in landfills and waterways in our oceans and lakes. Microplastics are in our drinking water, in sea salt, in the food we eat, in the soil we grow our food in. It's consumed whole by sea animals and who also have it in their flesh when we eat them. Okay, plastics that are degraded from things like plastic bags and plastic bottles. As plastics break down, they shed chemicals such as phthalates and bisphenol A, which are now commonly found in the environment and have significant effects on human health. These chemicals confuse and disrupt our endocrine system, which is the body's glandular system, and are particularly dangerous during sensitive stages of life when small disturbances in endocrine function can lead to profound and lasting health effects. Endocrine disruptors are now being studied and screened far more aggressively than in the past because they have been related to the high level of autoimmune disorders that we see today, to certain cancers, and to various other health disorders that result from either an overabundance or an underabundance of hormones in the body. The root of this problem is that our body fails to identify these pollutants as toxins that it needs to reject. It thinks they are hormones and allows them to build up in the body, which causes the negative health effect. For these reasons, these chemicals defy the common assumption that you may have heard called the dose is the poison, that as the dose of a chemical increases in your body, so will the body's response to it, and in the best case is rejecting it. But that doesn't happen. What we see instead is that the body does not respond to these chemicals until there is a significant amount of them in our system, and that's what causes a dramatic health effect, but unfortunately after it's too late. So if you want to find out information about endocrine disruptors, you can just go to the EPA website, which has a lot of information about this relationship between the things that are in plastic and what it's doing to human health. And the point is just that minimizing plastics is a matter of public health. Okay? This is a public health issue. And even though you've decided to table the proposed ordinance, I also want to make sure that you understand that it's not just a public health issue, but also appropriate and timely based on what everyone else in the country is starting to do. So you've already heard this a little bit from the previous speaker, and you may not be aware that hundreds of cities, literally hundreds, like well over 300, I think almost 400, in this country have already established ordinances that either ban or charge fees for the use of plastics, predominantly plastic bags. States such as Arkansas, which has 7 cities with such ordinances, South Carolina, which has 6 cities, Texas, which has 11 cities, as well as Utah, New Mexico, and the list goes on and on. Okay? Nearly half of the states in the country have cities in them that have passed these kinds of ordinances. At Lehigh University, we've recently we've banned plastic straws. You've just learned about an effort with the EAC in Bethlehem.
So you have a minute left, but go ahead.
Okay. So in addition to that, sorry, I lost my place.
Sorry.
The cities and institutions that have already taken action on this are acting on their responsibility to protect public health. They're not being anti-business, as some people like to claim. I was just at the Hotel Bethlehem earlier this week and noticed that they were giving out drinks, literally cocktails with plastic straws in them. Okay? So obviously people have different perspectives on what they may think is safe for human health and the environment, and this is especially dependent on how old a person may be. Younger people perceive environmental problems differently than people of older generations. The students I work with, for example, who are studying engineering, earth science, and policy, expect human health to be considered in public policy, and they are quite weary of false economic claims attempting to cloud what is truly a public health issue. Okay? Just today in the paper, the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission released a bunch of information showing how people in this valley want a cleaner environment. They want more pedestrianism. I'm sure they don't want to see plastic flags blowing in the trees when they're walking on their trails. Okay?
Your time has expired.
Thank you. I'll be back to finish at the next meeting.
And feel free to forward, your entirety if you'd like, to the clerk. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address County Council? Seeing no one? Ma'am, you've already addressed County Council.
I was going to make an additional comment in support of the two previous ones that you just heard.
But I'm sorry.
Could I have a half a second? 1 second?
The second's already gone. I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but we have.
I have a master's in public health.
I
and I
appreciate.
agree with what the two previous speakers just told you.
All right, very good. You're in agreement, and you could forward something to the clerk as well. Is there anyone else who has not spoken to council yet that would like to speak? Seeing no one, we're going to move on. Thank you to all the speakers. We have the county executive report. Sir, executive, if you have something to say.
I do. Whenever citizens come forward with allegations of abuse, this is deeply concerning to me. With respect to specific cases, I am advised that I can say very little in public about what I know with respect to specific investigations, so I won't. You can ask the question, and that's what the answer will be. But what I would say to you is, yes, we are deeply, deeply concerned that these allegations have been made for a period of years and years. One of the things I would say, and council has enough work to do, and I don't suggest that you do more, but one of the things you could do is conduct a human services meeting and investigate these specific claims. If you find these specific claims have merit, you can refer them to the district attorney's office. The district attorney has investigators, several county detectives that you pay, who can go out and figure out if there are any if there is any merit to these claims. It would seem to me, owing to the serious nature of them, that you might want to conduct such an investigation. But what I will say is, in the just less than a year that I've been county executive, I have found that we have some of the finest people that you could find working for us throughout the Department of Human Services, and they have my strongest endorsement for their intelligence, their education, their integrity, their background. These are people who do very, very difficult jobs for relatively very little money. Better benefits after tonight for a lot of them, but for very little, there will be. It's too good to pass up. So I just want to tell you that as you already know, we have one of the finest human services workforces in the Commonwealth. They have my entire support, and you should understand that. With that being said, I've also learned that we're not perfect. We're not perfect, and we do make mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes linger for years and years and years and are only uncovered after years and years. And when in the few instances we have encountered them this year, we've taken specific action to ameliorate them, prevent them from occurring in the future, and we will continue to be ever vigilant about that, because we care about and we don't necessarily out of hand just reject or ignore what are very serious accusations. So I would recommend that you investigate further these accusations, that these people had the courage to come here and make these accusations, and they have specific facts they shared with you. I think you should take that evidence, and if you think there's something going on, you should refer it to the district attorney. That's my view of that. The contracts that are in front of you tonight, pass them, please. The employees have been laboring under a health care contract that has made it very difficult for them to keep body and soul together, literally body and soul, because it's been so expensive for them to keep their body together with this co-insurance and the dreaded gap insurance, which is being eliminated in our new health care plan. But your unionized folks cannot get into those plans unless you pass these contracts. So they will be, if you don't pass them, they will be mired in the purgatory of this old health care, paying that ridiculously high co-insurance and not being covered by that gap insurance that they would promise would help them when they exceeded their cap. So that's part of what we're doing here tonight. And we politicians, that's all of us here who are elected, talk about how wonderful our workforce is, and they're the greatest, and they are. I mean, they're terrific. The women and men who actually run this county are very well deserving of having a health care plan, and in this case, a choice of two really terrific health care plans. I hope you'll see that you agree with me tonight. Also, they're worth more money than we're about to pay them in these contracts, these people. They are. They're worth more money than we're about to pay them. But they understand, I think, and many of them are county taxpayers themselves, they understand that the taxpayers are not a money tree, that the money tree can't be shaken every 3 years to cash in, and they have agreed with us to the wage increases, as modest as they are, 4.5% in the first year, which is a matter of equity. We took what county council did last year for the non-union folks, and we said, oh, wait a minute. It's only fair that our unionized folks get that step too, 4.5%. And then in the second and third years of the contracts, 2 and 2, 2% and 2%. Now that's less than they wanted. It's less than they wanted, but we prevailed upon them that was the thing to do because we have to fund the health care. Now, health care costs are going to continue to rise. There's nothing anyone can do about that. They're going to continue to rise. We believe the more folks who enroll in the HSA plan, it will help us level out that rise. So the increase is like this. We're hoping that we can level it out a little bit with the greater participation in the HSA. And most of our workforce is unionized. You will be approving, if you approve them tonight, contracts for over half of our employees. The folks at the top of the scale who aren't getting the step in the first year, they're getting $1,750 additional to their pay because they can no longer, they're at the top of the scale, they can no longer go up. So that's what their compensation is in the first year of this contract. You have any questions for me about that?
Anything right now?
Okay. Thank you very much. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Executive. And let me just tack on to that. When we have our committee meetings, and those committee meetings do deal with specific issues, the public is more than welcome to come to the committee meetings and make statements about what we're talking about. All right, very well. Now we'll move on to old business. And first, we're going to discuss the consideration of the personnel request resolution for the Court Administration Juvenile Justice Center. This was tabled at the meeting on November 15th, 2018. I would need a motion to remove this resolution from the table. Mr. Dietz has made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I saw Mr. Werner's hand. It was a tie, I think, between Mr. Werner and Kusick, but this time it goes to Mr. Werner. So, very well. So, it is off. You have the resolution in front of you. We'll open this. Oh, I'm sorry. Motion to take off the table. Excuse me. I'm getting ahead of myself. Call the vote.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9 to 0.
Thank you. All right, so now it is off the table, and you have it, and we can have discussion. Is there any discussion on this resolution? We had seen it before. That's it? Okay.
I have a comment.
Oh, well,
I'm just going to
go
say
right
that
ahead, Ms. Hefner.
I'm willing to vote yes, that we examined it, that the changes were made that I asked for, and I'm comfortable saying yes at this time.
Thank you. As you will see, the resolution is the same resolution. What changed was some wording in the actual job title, which does no impact on the resolution itself, so we can vote on the old one. So if there's no other comments or questions, Ms. Zembo, please call the roll.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
And Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9 to 0.
Thank you. Now, what I would like to do is, these were all handed out to clean up all this business as we go into the new year. We had kept the assistant director of treatment. We reinstated that at the last meeting because we did not want this lady to not be, she was in a limbo state. But this is an upgrade. So what I am doing is presenting a resolution that I'm introducing tonight, which will eliminate the individual's position as the courts had requested to begin with. So I don't know if you need me to read that. You all have it in front of you. I'm introducing it. Is there a
second?
All right. So is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, let's call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
And Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9 to 0.
Thank you. Is there any other old business? Any other old business? Seeing, seeing none, we'll move on to new business. And we have the consideration of collective bargaining unit agreement resolutions. There are 6 of them. We're going to start with the Youth Detention Center unit. And Mr. McGee, since you're on the phone, and I know how sketchy that gets at times, Mr. Werner has graciously agreed to do the honors as a member of the Personnel Committee.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Now, therefore, it is hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that the collective bargaining unit agreement between ASME Local 1265, Youth Detention Center Unit, and the County of Northampton shall be approved this 13th day of December 2018. And we did have discussion on it.
All right. Are there any questions on this? Does the administration have anything? Mr. Kusick.
Yeah, I have a general question.
Right ahead.
If someone could, from the administration, could just for our benefit, tell us the differences between the 2 county health care proposals, the PPO 400 versus the PPO HSA 2000. And if you were an employee, what would you pick? And just some background, because I think we'd appreciate that.
First part, don't have a problem with that at all. Both of those plans are preferred provider network plans, which means if you use the providers in the network, and our network includes a lot of St. Luke's doctors and other kind of healthcare providers, you will get a more favorable price and be more covered by your benefits than if you use an out-of-network doctor. But you can use an out-of-network provider. You're just going to pay a little bit more. One is what's considered sort of a traditional PPO, not considered a high deductible plan as the IRS uses that term. The PPO 400 is that sort of traditional provider plan. It has a deductible of $400 if you're single, $800 if you're a family. It's your responsibility to meet that deductible each year. Once you've met that deductible, all your in-network services are covered. Okay? There may be some exceptions to certain, there are always exceptions now in healthcare to certain drugs and whatever, but that would be true under the other healthcare plan and even under the one we have now. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you couldn't hear me. The other plan, also a preferred provider network, but it's a high deductible plan, which allows the county to make the deductible $2,000 if you're single and $4,000 if you're a family. That's a lot of money for most of our employees who aren't, even the highly compensated county employees probably would not pass the highly compensated tests by market standards. But they can have an HSA, which is a health savings account. That's something allowed under the IRS rules, under the Affordable Care Act. It allows employees to establish and put away money, pre-tax dollars, I'm going to say, not tax-free, but pre-tax dollars into this account. It also allows the employer to deposit money into this account. Now, there are limits. You can't, neither combined, the employer and the employee cannot deposit more than $3,500 a year for singles and $6,500 a year for families. $7,000 now. Thank you. And if there's also a catch-up, if you're 55 or older, you can put an additional $1,000 for singles, an additional $1,000 for families. The county, in order to help employees bear the burden of this high deductible, has agreed to fund singles $1,250 a year into their health savings account, which, if you're a current employee, you elect the high deductible HSA plan. In January, in 2019, you will get $1,250 deposited into your account. We will even set up the account through Capital Blue Cross for them. If you're a family, you will get $2,500 deposited into your account. That's there to help the employee and their dependents pay their deductible. The employee can also deposit money into that account. It's pre-tax dollars. So if the employee wants to deposit their entire $750, if you're single, to get to the $2,000, that's fine. If they want to put more in and go all the way up to the IRS limit of the $3,500 if they're single, or $7,000 if they're a family, they can do that too. It comes out biweekly, 26 pays this year. The nice thing about that health savings account is it is portable and it ports with the employee. So if the employee leaves county employment, they do not lose the money. They don't have to spend it up in a big hurry if they're leaving. They take it with them. It's their health savings account. And now, of course, the IRS has rules. You have to use it on health care. There are things that you cannot. You
can use it on child care too, can't you?
That's a flexible spending account. That's different. Yeah, no, this is strictly health savings. But that's out there too, and we have flexible spending for child care. You can have both of those, actually, if you want, in that high deductible plan. You can have the flexible spending for child care. In the low deductible plan, you can have flexible spending for yourself, for medical expenses in that PPO 400 plan also. But essentially, the real difference is the deductible. The provider networks are exactly the same for both. Now, which one would I pick? I can only tell you what I would do, and I'm not every employee. I happen to have worked for an employer previous to this. I had a health savings account. I have some thousands of dollars in there now. I intend to add to that. Unlike many of the county employees who are blessed to have health care in their retirement, I will not have any such benefits. And it is of great concern to me that the older I get, the more I'm likely to need health care benefits. Knock on wood, I'm pretty healthy right now. So I'm going to try, my goal for me is to sock away as much money as I can into this health savings account so that, God forbid, when I retire and Medicare won't pay that much, I won't get thrown out of the hospital or, anything worse than that, and I'll have health care. Maybe I might even need skilled nursing care. You don't know what the future will bring. So to me, it's very appealing to have something that will help me get a safety cushion. But if I'm one of the employees who's been here a long time and I have entitlement to retirement health care, then I might be thinking of, again, it would depend on my needs. our vendor has shown us that you generally save money, out-of-pocket expenses, using the HSA healthcare, whether you're a high user or a low user. But I would say this. There's also the employee's mindset, and some people like to think about things, and some people don't. And I'm finding that the people who don't want to have to think about too much when it comes to healthcare, other than maybe what doctor they're going to go to, and if they're relatively low income and they're not worried about tax sheltering any of their income, they find the PPO 400 very appealing. Then there are people who find the HSA very appealing for reasons of maybe wanting to tax shelter some of their income, reasons of maybe wanting to have a safety net cushion like what I just told you about myself. But there are also people who, they might be married to someone who has a health savings account, and they can both have one and save double the money that way. So it's pretty awesome. Some people like the idea of, well, you know, if the county's going to deposit the $1,250 or the $2,500, they realize if their health care expenses aren't that expensive, they can get pretty much everything paid for without ever even having to meet their deductible. So there are a lot of positive features about both of these plans and a lot of ways to avoid out-of-pocket expenses. We charge a contribution rate that's less for the HSA because the HSA costs us less. I think the current percentage for career services are 4% if you're single, 4.5% if you're employee plus one, 5% if you're family. If you take the HSA, you get the same network, but you're going to pay 2% if you're single, 2.5% if you're employee plus one, and 3% if you're family. So I don't like to really presume to know what's best for every other employee. There really are positive features in both plans, and a lot of it has to do with how much you like to think about health care, how much you like to shop for it, and kind of where you are right now in terms of needing it. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess it's the difference between having, it sounds like it's the difference between having a pension and a 401k. The HSA is like a health care 401k that you can, maintain the balance and use it as you need it. I understand.
I think that's a good analogy. Thank you for that.
Are there any other questions? I have a question. It's actually two-part, which goes across the board. What, on the contracts overall, what is it going to cost, and where's the money coming from?
The total cost of the contracts? Well, that would be my money man over here, Mr. Someone with whom I know you're well acquainted.
You can. Well, I forget what the phrase was that he's something. I forget the term they used, but anyway, you'd make a good duet probably on addressing the contracts.
My bet was Mr. Cusick was going to ask that question.
Well, we sometimes we mix it up here, Steve. So. All right, I asked the question.
So in the contracts, you'll notice there's retro pay in some of them for year one. The retro pay is in the 2018 budget. We have enough money to cover it. We have made the moves to cover that money, so there's no impact. It's 2018 funds. There'll be no impact rolling into 2019. Now, as you know, in past years when we settle contracts, there's never any money put into the budget for contracts. We never know where they're going to be. However, we have enough money to cover these contracts in the short term, and you will see those contracts, or you will see a budget amendment. We have to look at the money we have in health care, what the health care plan is going to cost us, what our contributions are going to be. We've seen an increase in health care, but I think that's going to level off and hopefully come down. So when we look at those things opening up 2019, we hope to have a reasonable budget amendment that will incorporate all this, and we do have enough money in the county coffers to cover these contracts.
Okay. Is there any other? Are there any questions? All right. There's no discussion on this on the resolution. We'll move for a vote.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Deeks.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
And Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Mr. Werner, back to you.
Okay, on the court-appointed non-professional, now therefore it is hereby resolved that the Northampton County Council that the collective bargaining unit agreement between ASME Local 1265 court-appointed non-professional unit and the County of Northampton shall be approved this 13th day of December 2018.
Thank you. Any questions? You want to make any more statements? I think covered. Any questions from council? Seeing none. December, please call the roll.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Deeks.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
And Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Mr. Werner.
Court-related non-professional unit. Now therefore it is hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that the collective bargaining unit agreement between ASME Local 1265 and court-related non-professional unit and the County of Northampton shall be approved this 13th day of December 2018.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, let's call for the vote.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Deeks.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
And Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Mr. Warner.
Residual non-professional unit. Now therefore it is hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that the collective bargaining unit agreement between ASME Local 1265 residual non-professional unit and the County of Northampton shall be approved this 13th day of December 2018.
Thank you. Discussion? Seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Zirinsky. Go ahead.
I just had a question on the trade, this section that says trade classifications.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
I had a question on the trade classifications at Appendix G, Assessment Office, where it talks about the lunches.
I'm sorry, I'll come up here.
Is this in reference to the lunches that were previously given up?
No.
No.
You might be thinking of Graysdale.
I am. So where would that be?
Okay.
We're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Historically, years for Graysdale, I'll
Mhm.
answer that. Historically, I've told it some years ago, the nursing staff at Graysdale got a paid lunch. That is not unusual in a field like nursing or something where you might be called off your lunch hour to attend to a resident. In some cost-saving initiative of some time, I really could, also in the past, I don't know when, that was something they conceded in negotiations in order to save the county money and keep the nursing home open, I guess. So it was we were told it was very important to them to get that half-hour paid lunch back.
Right.
So that was one of the things we were willing to do for them. But in return, they gave us a number of things that we felt were very valuable to us in terms of we found out that we were obligated by contract to pay, you're not going to believe this, to pay a sick leave bonus. In other words, a bonus you get for a low use of sick leave to part-time employees who didn't get sick leave. Yeah, it shocked me too at the beginning, but apparently someone thought that, well, they would use less of their no-pay days if we gave them the bonus if they used less than 5 no-pay days, I guess, per year. So, of course, people were collecting this bonus. We were able to cut that back to sick leave bonus only for full-time employees who actually have sick leave to use. We got some other concessions in terms of we were able to broaden our definition of the weekend because we were really hurting on Friday nights and pay like the same differentials that we pay on weekends on Friday nights too, and that, even though it costs us a little more, it really is going to help us. Some other things were that they were willing to give up what they call these 99 days, which somehow came from a unique interpretation of one of the county policies involving unpaid leave, there was a provision in the policy that said supervisors can approve up to 5 days of unpaid leave per year. This somehow got interpreted over there as 5 individual unpaid days of leave per year you get, like, free. Yeah, nowhere else in the county is this a custom or practice. The union agreed to end it, to let us end that, and that will help us a lot because we had an awful lot of people taking these, and it doesn't help us because they're like surprise days off. They can call off at the last minute and use
So
them.
specific to this resolution, it doesn't say whether or not the lunch break between 11 and 2 is paid or unpaid. So I just have questions.
For the assessment office?
Yeah.
I don't believe that their lunch breaks are paid, but apparently the issue with them was that they could have flexibility in taking the lunch break as opposed to pay or not pay. They like to, when they're out in the field, I guess they don't always like to stop at noon.
Gotcha. Okay.
For the record, if I may speak.
Yes.
In 2013, the Graysdale employees and the unions gave concessions which amounted to $2.5 million, which enabled Graysdale to continue to work. Okay? So there were many other things that were done. I don't believe you were here.
Nope.
But I know we were. And that was a hard-fought contract, and there were many gives that the unions and those people gave up. So
Right.
just for the record, okay?
Thank you.
Well, I know those lunches were very important to them to get back as well.
Yes.
So that's why I was asking. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Is there any other
Thank you.
questions,
No.
discussion?
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Call for the vote.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Deep.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lott.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
And Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Mr. McGee, and I want you have a good voice, so I'm just assuming if you have a question, you're going to yell into your...
Yes, absolutely.
We hear you clearly.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Did Bill have a question?
No. not
No.
this one.
Okay, this is...
Let them know we're listening.
You keep them awake. PSSU Human Services Unit. Therefore, it is hereby resolved that the Northampton County Council, that the collective bargaining unit agreement between SEIU Local 668, PSSU Human Services Unit, and the County of Northampton shall be approved this 13th day of December, 2018. So stated.
Thank you. Are there any discussion?
Just
Mr.
a
Kuzic.
question on this one. This one has been unresolved for quite some time, to say the least. How have we managed that issue? Is there significant back pay, or how are we addressing the length that this has gone on?
I really think what won the day with PSSU was the health care options that we're offering now. They had a lot of questions. They poked at them a little bit more than some of the other unions, but I think in the end they must have been satisfied because the overwhelming impression was they liked the health care. They're willing to close on a contract. They did press hard on they wanted 3 years worth of back pay, and, we pushed back because basically they won a lot by keeping their old health care plan. They didn't get raises for a number of years. They made that bargain, though, knowingly. And we said, you can't ask us to finance that now. We're fixing the health care. We can do something, but we can't do everything.
Right.
So, no. The only retroactivity that they got would be from the beginning of 2018, but that's year one of the contract. So they'll get, like our pattern was, a step the first year. In this case, their steps are only worth I think it's 2.75%. So they would get a step, and we agreed to give them up to 4.5%, like the other units got, because it was important to us that we treat everybody with equity. So that's what they get the first year. The second year, 2%, and the third year of the contract, 2% general wage increase across the board.
Okay, so we're not going back beyond this year?
No.
Okay, I see heads shaking. Thank you. That's what I wanted to clarify.
Are there any other? I know, having had to negotiate PSSU contracts myself in the past, it's challenging, and good for you.
Good for you.
Any statements? All right, questions? Go ahead. Call for the vote.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Deeds.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9 to 0.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Varner?
Now we're on grade 4.
Yeah.
Therefore, it is hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that the collective bargaining unit agreement between ASME Local 1435, Graysdale Unit, and the County of Northampton shall be approved this 13th day of December 2006.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah.
Mr.
On
Corsick?
this one, I guess my question is, what was the need for the, or why was the subcontracting language introduced as part of this?
Someone want to address this? You can both come up.
Yeah,
You
sure.
can make a great duet.
I know
Sit.
Steve wants
Since
Oh.
I don't want to talk.
Is that a surprise?
Just say
one
that.
of
Steve
one
and I are
of
kindred
the
spirits.
one of the issues with the folks that were there from that lived the sale of the home, they were concerned about selling off parts of the home and having the home ripped apart, like subcontracting out laundry, for example, or housekeeping and those things. The core of the home that they expressed to us in the negotiations was that they believed that they wanted to keep the family together. So making sure the laundry was done in-house, making sure that the residents knew who the people were that actually were cleaning their room, and that it wasn't a revolving door of people. So that was important to them. It was really a non-economic issue because we're not getting rid of them anyway. So that's why it was put in the contract.
And that was my next question. I thought it was unusual, given the position that this executive and this administration has taken in that regard. But if they feel it's important, I don't have any particular objection. I just thought it was unusual that it was being introduced. And then just a general statement, and if you want to respond, you can. I'll just raise my concerns. We're getting rid of Premier. We're going to get the health choices, the Medicaid, the new reimbursements coming on. State funding has been flat. I think we got 1% additional in this budget year. Thankfully, we have the IGT, and if that goes away, we're going to be right back where we were. That's my concern. I understand. These are nice raises for the employees, but my hope is that we don't wind up back where we were 4 years ago.
Any other questions, concerns? Thank you. Seeing none, call for the vote.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Deeds.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Heckman.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
And Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9 to 0.
Thank you. And the executive wanted to say something. So.
Yes, just very briefly, Mr. President, I'd like to thank council for unanimously validating the dignity of the work your employees do here tonight. I'd also like to thank specifically SEIU for bringing their folks in from the cold after 4 years. They were tough, I'm told, at the table, and we really appreciate them working with us. We appreciate AFSCME, their staff representatives, as well as your employees who negotiated for them, I'm told at times fiercely, and I congratulate all of them on a job well done. I'd also like to thank you for allowing us to hire outside labor counsel. I practiced law for many years, but I never negotiated a contract. And Mr. Miller from Eckert Siemens, his advice to us was absolutely invaluable and worth every penny you paid him. Again, I thank you for that. I can't say enough about Mr. Dertinger and Ms. Kelly and Mr. Barron and Ms. Wondolowski on the human services contracts. They were terrific. As you know, I've often talked about how important our employees are, and they are to me. Having grown up in a civil servant's home, I understand the relative deprivations that you take by making less money in the public sector, and it was important for us to get our health care back on track. But our negotiators still, with all that said and understanding how I felt, still understood that we had a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers and to you. And this contract, while not perfect, I think is one that both sides can live with for the next 3 years. And I thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Executive, and I echo your praise. I think, given the number of contracts, the number of employees, everybody did a good job. The unions, the representatives, the administration. It isn't easy, and you tackled 6 of them. So that's great. And as far as health care goes, I think that it's. I won't see it, but I look forward to the day when we don't have to worry about people shopping or worrying about if they can get something taken care of. It's unfortunate. People have to worry about that in this day and age. But that's what it is. All right. No editorials. We're finished with that. We'll move on. Next item on the agenda is the consideration of an Article 13 contract resolution, W2A Design Group. I have it here somewhere. Yeah. All right. I'm going to read the therefore. Therefore, be it resolved that Northampton County Council does hereby concur with the recommendation of the county executive as set forth in the attached documentation to approve a contract with W2A Design Group for professional services for the new Regional Forensic Center. All right. I believe we have the individuals here who have been sitting patiently. Is there any discussion? Yes, Mr.
Yeah, well, I would just like the gentlemen to come up and share their vision for what they would like this facility to look like.
Would you please come up, introduce yourselves, and I think they've spoken before, but certainly maybe they revised their vision after seeing us in action. I don't know.
In fairness to them, it's our vision. They're just going to help us
And that is
all right.
true.
Would you come up and explain how you are going to implement the executive's vision, or the administration's vision?
And our coroner's vision.
And, well, yeah, he comes last on the list. No offense to Zach.
Hi, Glenn Lichtenwalder with the W2A Design Group.
Thank you.
Principal, and will be the principal in charge for the project. I met with you back in October, I believe. At that time, we did show some plans on the screens, and we actually have some other. I can refresh your memories with. Have 2 copies only.
Well,
that's all right.
No, I don't.
Yeah, let's
Give Ms. Zemba
Zemba.
a copy.
Linda, there are 2 copies of those documents. To refresh your memory. Before I go further, I also want to introduce my partner, David Drake, who is lives in the county in Easton. So, part of what we do as architects is provide service, and that service is providing the service to you, as well as then the executive group, as well as council, as well as the coroner. We've been working with the coroner to help them understand what the possibilities are, and as the needs for the facility, the requirements for the facility have preliminarily been addressed or conceptually addressed in those documents that I gave to Linda. There is still a lot more work to be done. And that vision that we may have really comes from our client. It comes from you, as well as the executive committee, as well as the coroner. So what that, even though we have renderings in that conceptual design that may be the image, but there is still work to be done, and what will the final image be? And that is part of the process, the design process. John, does that help you?
Yeah, well, then, just to follow up, one of my concerns is always the timetable and the budget. We've established a budget based on a bond issue that we voted on previously. Can you stay under that budget, and can you get this done in a timely manner?
We have experience with many public projects, and
So do
we have,
I, and not all have gone well.
But I will say, over my 36 years of being an architect, and probably over 30 years of providing services to the public, we've had a great track record. And we have in our proposal to you a timetable, and that timetable will be strictly adhered to, as well as the concerns of budgets. That is not anything we haven't heard before. And we have and you can check our track record. It's a very, I'm very proud of our track record with that.
If I may, I believe that you designed the first one in 2000. Didn't you have a part of the first design?
Bucks County, we did their facility.
You did their facility.
And that came within budget, as well as
you were under
within
budget, I
time.
just to believe, just a little bit.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping.
And we've done a lot of work for Bucks County over the years.
Okay.
And we were,
Well, I just noted the differences from the 2013 presentation to the 2018, and there was about an $8 million difference in pricing. So I'm hoping you come in under budget.
Okay. There were several items why. There was an enlargement in scope, and that's the...
You mean square footage?
Yes. Okay. Because of the changes to putting the forensic engineering or forensic division, digital forensic division within this facility, and that grew the building. So those are, and inflation, as well as construction costs, as well as solar panels.
Well, you'll have all the soft costs and everything
included,
broken out, correct?
Yes.
I know David very well, so I hope you do well.
We live
because he's a neighbor.
and that is something that we take quite. We respect that. You know where we live.
Yeah, I do. Literally and figuratively speaking, I do, yes.
Yeah.
That's great. I know I can walk right down. Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Mr. Lott.
And I know we noted it this last time, but I'm worked in construction all my life, and I've seen so many buildings, and we build them, and 10 years later, they're putting additions on them. And we are going to design this, or are we designing this, that we can easily put an addition on it and without destroying the existing building to do it.
That was one of the priorities in that conceptual design, was design it in such a way that we have enough room already in the plan for expansion of more additional personnel if necessary, as well as for instance, we have another area for another autopsy table, which may be needed. We have 2 now, could be 3. So there's also we took into account also the certain sizes of coolers and freezers for the bodies and so on, so that there is additional space within the building. Also, there is space on either side that's designated, and it will be worked on or developed with the planning of the site to allow the building to be expanded, okay, in various ways.
And our mechanicals will be easily accessible to put that expansion on. Is that correct?
Yes, that can be done.
I think it's important. I've
It
seen
is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? And John, I don't think you have to worry too much. They're not involved with bridges, so I think we'll be in good shape. So anyway, nothing else? Very good. Well, then let's call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Lott?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
And Mr. Dees?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I'll be down for coffee, Dave.
Okay.
Good bag, sir.
All right. Now, we'll move on. We have a consideration of a contingency fund transfer resolutions. We'll start with the first one, and Mr. Kusick, you can take it away.
Yeah, okay. Now therefore be it resolved by the Northampton County Council that a sum of $5,000 shall be transferred from the 2018 contingency account number 05000-76050 to the Center for Animal Health and Welfare.
It's a Christmas gift?
Yeah, there's, as Mr. Heckman knows, there's been a tradition that in and around this season that if members of council identify worthy nonprofits that we deem in need, that if we have extra money in the council contingency fund, that allowances be made.
Mr. Cusick, it's well within the purview of council members to do this at the end of the year. I haven't been around. I know that a lot's changed, but that is still something. He has the right to put the resolution out. It's a worthy cause. I'm a big advocate of that myself. And council then has like anything else, you can go for it or against it. Are there any discussion? Ms. Ferraro.
In years past, we had given many more dollars than that. I think if we go back in the thing. So I'm very happy that we're at least giving them something.
Anything else? Anybody like to say anything, or are there any questions?
Who put this forward?
Mr. Cusick.
Mr. Cusick.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just checking. Can you tell us why? Like, what's your affiliation with the Center for Animal Health and Welfare? Like,
well, let's just say I own a rescue dog, and there's always a need.
Rescue dog.
Yeah, there's always a need there for everything from dog food to leashes to volunteers. There's never enough money. There's never enough people to adopt the pets. But Kelly Bauer, who's the executive director, does a terrific job, and bless her. And I think that that's a worthy cause for this additional money that we have in our account.
And also because they're no-kill, so the animals are there. And
I think it's a worthy. I mean, the poor animals. It's human negligence and not their fault. And I'm glad that. But it's proper at the end of the year if there's something that Mr. Cusick's correct.
We got it. Okay.
Any discussion? Any other discussion?
No, just to say it's a very well-run facility. I know we donate dog food down there quite often, and she does a very good job running the facility. So I'm very happy to support this.
All right. That's that. Call for the vote.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Lott?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Rinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Deep?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ferraro?
yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Mr. Cusick?
Okay, next one. Now therefore be resolved by the Northampton County Council that the sum of $5,000 shall be transferred from the 2018 contingency account to the Saucon Valley Community Center. Again, this is another 501c3 not-for-profit that provides senior programs as well as low-cost daycare in Hellertown for the Saucon Valley area.
Ms. Ferraro?
Why is this coming up now? Did they not get hotel tax or any of this other?
No, it's just, like I said, I think it's a worthy organization that's always, every time I go to the Giant in Hellertown, there's something there. They're always in need of funding, so that's why I thought this would be the appropriate venue.
Any other questions, discussion? Mr. Lott?
Again, this is an outstanding facility down there. They do a lot for senior citizens and children. So once again, I appreciate that, and I will be supporting it.
Anything else? All right, let's call for the vote.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Lott?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Bill? You with us, Bill?
I'm sorry, I had it on mute. Yes, I said yes a couple times.
Now we hear you.
That's two votes.
Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Rinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Deep?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
And Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
All right. Now we have consideration of the 2019 County Council meeting schedule resolution. I don't know if everybody on council read it. Please don't ask me to read the entire thing. I would say this. No, I'll say it after we vote on this. This doesn't involve it. Is there any discussion on this? It's just what we do every year, and we still do that, and we set forth the...
Just, I think the schedule looks good. I know I actually talked about, when Mr. Kraft was still on council, Bathborough invited us to have one of our meetings there. I know we had talked about, occasionally having a different spot to make it reach out. The Bathborough does have a new facility with all the recording and devices. So
I think it's a great idea. My only concern is there something about meeting outside the county seat? I mean, I'm concerned about it, and also it's the logistics of it.
No, we met in Bethlehem for Channel 39 one time.
I mean, yeah. I mean, sure. We'll take a look at it. We don't have necessarily vote. I think it's not. I mean, people have brought this up in the past, and we'll certainly have the solicitor check it, and we can discuss that. But is there any other discussion? Okay. Is that my thing?
No, what is that?
What's that?
It's your tie. Oh my gosh.
I've been hearing this all night long.
that was your phone.
No. My phone's up. That's Home Shopping Network phones. But anyway, all right. Call the vote.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Rinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
And Mr. Love?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you. Now, while everyone's sitting here, we have the second meeting of January. I just want to double check with everyone. It would have been the 17th, but since the meeting is on the first Monday, which I believe is the 7th, if I'm not mistaken, it won't be a full 2 weeks. And since we're not sure about having to necessarily have 14 days, if in fact an ordinance is presented, how does people feel about moving that second meeting to, I believe it would be the 24th? It would be the following Thursday. Is that on that?
Then would you put the committees, the preceding committees on the same day as well?
Yeah.
Well, normally it would be, but I don't want to create undue problems here because of this. I mean, yes, we would then, it would make sense to have the committee meetings that are before the second meeting on the Wednesday before the meeting. I just wanted to bring that to people's attention. All right, so if we're all understand that, I believe then we have to amend.
Wait a second. So not on the 17th, but on the 24th.
That's what we're talking about, yeah, doing it on the 24th. Is that?
And then we have a meeting on the 7th then still, too, but not on the 10th and not on the 3rd.
Instead of the first and third Thursday, because we have to have reorganization the first Monday of the new year, the third Thursday would unfortunately end up being less than 2 weeks from that first meeting and could create a problem if an ordinance were introduced. So by moving it one Thursday further to the 24th, that would resolve any issues that could potentially come up.
Still maintain 2 weeks.
And yes, that's correct.
Right.
So that's the reasoning. It's just a specific situation. All right, well, yeah, I just want to know, all right, motion to amend?
Motion to amend.
Second. All right, so we have a motion to amend, and we have a second, and the motion is to move the second meeting in January to the 24th.
Yep.
All right, any questions? Please call the roll.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Yes.
Mr. Locke?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Rinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Dietz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
And Mr. McGee?
Yes.
All right, we're all set. Is there any other new business to discuss? A vote on the amended resolution. It's been a long year. And Mr. McClure's ties helping me. Okay, go ahead. We have a vote.
Second.
Well, it's just the vote. Please call the vote.
Mr. Heckman?
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic.
Yes.
Mr. Dietz.
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro.
Yes.
Mr. Lot.
Yes.
Mr. McGee.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Does anyone have any objections if I say, is there any other new business? Is there any other new business?
May I add something?
You may certainly add something.
Friends of Graysdale Foundation, 501c3, now has a website that people can go to. It's the Friends of Graysdale Foundation.org. And if you go there, you'll find out exactly what's been happening and the contributions that
You're welcome. And I just want to also say, I want to thank council. I think everybody, I come back and I enjoy, everybody, I think you've all been working well. We've all worked well together for the most part. I mean, council isn't, it's not always a love fest, but I want to thank, though, people particularly since we had some changes in personnel on council and since I've assumed Mr. Kraft's role for the cooperation and I didn't say I assumed this person, just his role. I appreciate everybody's assistance and help and cooperation and tolerance for not calling for the vote at times. So I hope everybody has a great holiday. Administration, it's been a pleasure most of the time. And I am. The medication isn't on me out yet. Okay. It's just my message, but that's since you've walked all over it. Are there any council committee reports? I am. I have a sensitive skin. I can't help it. Any committee reports? Seeing none. Any liaison reports? Seeing none. Council clerk's report.
Just a reminder, the meeting in January 7th at 6:30.
Here. Okay. Council solicitor.
Happy New Year.
Thank you for your report. Call for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Bill. Happy holidays, everybody.
Hey,
Good
Bill?
job.
Yeah.
Do you want to stay on the line because we're going to talk about
Sure.
the different things that they're going to